recording. There we go. Okie dokie. So last week we did plants. And then I was going to cover some more about plants this week, like UV unwrapping. But, and we will if we get to it, but there was something popped up on Discord, mention of Blender's built-in asset browser. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to go into it in a little bit more detail, how you can create drag and drop prefabs and drag and drop materials and so forth in Blender itself, which makes building your worlds so easy. So, as an example, I'm just going to grab Blender. I'll open up the thing we started last week. I've actually brought in another tree here, which I'll show how I did that as well. We'll go into Eevee so you can, that's cycles. Nice. Let's turn that down to 10. Yeah, probably better off with Eevee for now. So this is the things that were made last week. We did this vine thing and a tree and a plant pot with a little plant in it. Basically, with the asset browser, first of all, the best thing to do is find out how to get the asset browser up on screen. So what we do, the easiest way I find is just to, when you get these two little arrows, you can do it on any screen. You can do it here. I could, for instance, do a horizontal split there and create another window, or I can right click, join areas and put that back to where it was, if it's going to let me. There we go. But here, just anywhere you like, we'll do a vertical split, bring it over, and we've got a new, let's just close down both the end panels. We've got a new window, and if you pull down this little icon here, as all the different screens that you can get open. You can get open the video sequencer, or which is pretty cool if you want to make your little videos or whatever. But over here we've got the asset browser, and it's anything that's marked as an asset in the current file will appear down here, or you can choose where you want it to be. Now I've got a folder called Asset Library, and all I've done for that is over in the Edit Preferences bit, under File Paths, you've got all of these tabs. Under File Paths, under Asset Library, just hit the plus button, navigate to the folder where you want to save all your assets, and that's it. It's just set up. It will appear here under your little drop down menu. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new asset library. Don't know where I'm going to put it yet. I guess I'll just stick it in my D drive here and under Banter Projects, and we'll create a new folder which I'm going to call, I'll just call it Assets. So it's D, Banter Projects, Assets is where I've put it. So Edit, Preferences, I'll just get rid of that one for now, and we'll want it to be D, Projects, Assets, add Asset Library. And now I've got assets, I can bring that up. There's nothing in there at the moment. So what we can do is we can save this file, which is going to be my asset library. We'll save as, and it needs to be in the same folder, not that one, the project assets, save as, and you'll see there's still nothing appears. What we want to do is we want to mark one of these as an asset, and what we can do, actually let's just rename this to plant. We can right click on plant and mark as asset. And now, even though it's upside down, could be that that needs to have its rotation and scale applied, perhaps. Let's clear the asset and see if it does it again. There we go, that's the right way up. So we can literally just drag and drop that anywhere we like. And we've got loads more little plants. And if we wanted to save the materials, for instance, I might want to put this composty material in here on the ground. I can literally go to materials and we'll find the compost, right click and choose mark as asset, and now we've got a material which we can drag down here. Obviously it's just one tile over the one texture. In order to make that the texture kind of smaller and tile, I would just go into UV editing, select the box that is my plane and just scale it up, and you can see it working there. And there we've got the scale we want, if that's what we want. I could do the same for all of these and create assets for every material, because I may want to reuse them on other things. So we've got all these materials. You can, I believe, also create live catalogs. So I might want to call that one materials, and we can select all of these and drag them into materials. So now there's only materials in there. I could create another one which I'm going to call, I don't know, objects or assets, objects, and I can drag the plant into there. So you can see now I can arrange them sensibly as well, if that's what I want to do. Anything that's unassigned, that doesn't belong to a library, will appear here. So I could drag this back out of there, stick it in unassigned. So it's a good way of making sense of your assets as they're growing. What I would suggest is don't have too many assets in one Blender file though, because it will just take a long time. Just have a few. It's better to have a few assets in one file and just have several files in your library. So I'm going to try this one. This has also got bark, but it doesn't look like, if I can zoom in on it, I haven't unwrapped the stem. It's got the bark texture on it, but it's all stretched. So we'll fix that. An easy way to do that, just go into edit mode. We'll select nothing. We only want to select the stuff that's got the bark texture on it, and hit Shift and H and it'll hide everything else so you can see what you're doing. And then at the top here, just double check that there's no faces. There aren't. All we want to do is mark a seam down the whole length of it and unwrap it. So we'll select an edge that goes from top to bottom. U for unwrap, and then you can mark the seam and it turns red. Select everything by hitting the A button. U for unwrap and unwrap. And then you should, when I come out of edit mode, it's not quite there. Let's have a look and see what I've done. Okay. So basically, I think all we want to do is fix this. Where I use text tools, but you can do it manually. So I should probably show how to do that, shouldn't I? I think I have done before, but make sure you're in vertex mode. Just find something that's relatively straight. Select two of them, right click and align auto, and the bottom align auto, and then each of the sides right click align auto. Interface mode, select everything, use an L so it selects everything that's linked, and then right click and choose follow active quads, and that's straightened everything out so it's not all weird and twisted. We'll go back into here and have a look at the material, and we just need to scale it up. I think that should fix it. I wonder why it's not. Oh, I know why it's not fixing it, because let's just get rid of that. That's why, because I was editing one UV map and it was displaying the other UV map. It had two UV channels, so I've just got rid of one of them. So that's that. We've got our bark more or less sorted. If you want to bring everything back when you're in edit mode, just hit Alt and H. So Control and H to hide everything except what you've got selected. Alt and H to bring everything back. So that's basically it. Except, of course, what I've gone and done is knocked up all me leaves. So what we'll do is we'll just move that up a bit. And we might as well do it again because it's good practice. So into edit mode, select nothing, select everything with the leaves, and we'll just delete them. Delete the faces. And then add a particle system, hair, advanced, turn this down to maybe 20 to start with. An object, we want the object to be our maple leaf, which is up here. Okay, and what else do I want to do? I want to turn on rotation, tell it it's to sprout from the normal tangent, and it's coming from the faces. We want to randomize the scale so we get some big and some small. That's probably a bit much. Turn them down a bit. Do a little bit of randomization, just because it makes it look a bit more organic. Turn up the number of leaves. And there we are. That'll do nicely. Let's maybe have a few more. 65 perhaps. And then we need to realize the instances of the leaves. So make instances real. It helps if you have it selected. Make instances real. Find our stem, join them together. That's a bit weird. Why has that happened? Maybe what I need to do is apply the rotation and scale. This isn't good. When I get my little wheel, I keep thinking it's going to crash. Make instances real. Try again. Well, how bizarre. That wasn't happening before. So have I got an offset somewhere? Normal tangent. I have no idea what's going on there. If anybody knows, please tell me, because I'm clueless there. I wonder if I've still got... Live unwrap? No, I haven't. Right. Don't know what's going on there. So we're just going to recover it or revert. That is bizarre. Let's have a think. How am I going to do this? We'll select everything with the bark. We'll separate it out first of all. So we're just working on that. And let's do it again. So we want to get rid of that. We'll just work on that. And for quickness, I'm going to use text tools to straighten that out instead of doing it manually again, although it's a good practice to do it properly yourself. Just make that a bit bigger. There we go. And there we have the stem with some bark, which doesn't look too bad. And then we'll make that, we'll call that vine. And we'll mark it as an asset. Now my other stuff weren't marked as assets, but that's okay because I hadn't saved it like that, I don't think. Mark that as an asset. And it's upside down again. That is weird. There we go. And we'll do the materials again. So mark as asset. Mark as asset. And this one, the bark is already marked as an asset. We can tell because it's got a little blue icon, which what looks like some books on a shelf, but this one isn't. So right click, mark as asset. And then we'll do the flow again, just by dragging and dropping. And we'll increase the size of that a bit. So yeah, the asset library, very, very useful. Like I say, you can just drag stuff wherever you want. Definitely worth learning about. Now another thing you can do, I'm gonna just get rid of these for now. Have I got any more? Yeah, we've got one over here. Something which I think is really useful. If you go into, now I'm using version 3.4, so I don't have the extensions. I've only got an add-ons, but you've got extensions and add-ons which work much the same way. The only difference is add-ons are built into Blender or you install them manually, and extensions are linked to an online resource on the Blender website, but it still gets installed very much like an add-on. You just search for them differently. It's a slightly different thing. So some things that were built into Blender are now extensions. So if you don't find them in the add-ons, search for them in extensions and you're likely to find it. I'm just going to get rid of Blender Kit because it made me crash loads last time. But what if you do a search for, and I think this is probably an extension now, extra objects. There's curves and meshes. I've got both of them in because they're both cool. But make sure that you tick the extra objects, the mesh one. And then when you do that, if you add mesh, you'll get this extra thing along with some other stuff, but you'll get a rock generator. This is pretty cool because you can see here we've got what kind of looks like a rock. It's sitting in the middle of my tree, but that's fine. You can increase the number of rocks. They're just random, the ones that you get. So, and then you've got some presets down here. I wonder if I can move this thing. I don't think I can. Got some presets. You've got river rock and ice and all kinds of things. River rock's a nice one for smooth rocks. We'll have about 3. And if you're happy enough with that, you can obviously adjust different things for it and create your own rocks. But we'll select all of these. I'm just going to bring them over to here so it's not in the middle of my tree for now. And we can separate these out so you can see what they look like. Just a few different shapes. Actually those two are the same, so let's just get one of those, or it's very similar. We'll add another rock. That kind of looks okay. Now the only thing with these is if we turn on wireframe, doesn't look too bad there, but it's got all of these different modifiers, which creates basically what we've got. If I was to apply all of these, you'll see we've got way too much geometry. So usually I apply everything so it's still the shape I want, but then I'll unsubdivide it a couple of times, maybe something like that, and apply that. If I turn off wireframe, yeah, we've got some jaggedy edges, but hey ho, we could just go into auto smooth and increase the angle a little bit to get rid of those. And that smoothed it out. It's good enough. It's a relatively nice low poly rock. So I'm going to do the same for the others. Unsubdivide, decimate, unsubdivide. 1, 2, 3, 4. Apply it. And then if it needs smoothing a bit more, do that. Shade smooth. There we go. We've got some rocks. Now we need to give it a rock texture. So let's have a little look over here. I'll show you this in a moment. I'm just going to have a look. I've already been looking for rock, haven't I? This one looks quite nice. That's good enough. So we'll open that up, download it. And it looks like I've already downloaded it as well. So we'll just take the zip file, cut that, and we'll pop it into the Banter Projects assets. Paste it into there, extract it, and I'll just get rid of that zip file. So, another thing, I think, was it Fire Rat? I can't remember who it was who mentioned it. I think it might have been, or it could, was it Sebek? I don't remember. I apologise, whoever it was. Without going through Discord and trying to remind myself. But somebody mentioned another cool thing about Node Wrangler, which again, you just search for, well, I guess Wrangler will find it. Node Wrangler, make sure that's ticked. Again, it might be an extension, so if you don't find it under add-ons, look under extensions. Node Wrangler does a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the things I haven't covered that it does is automatically setting up your PBR textures. What I often use it for is for things like, let's just see. If you hit Control and T on its own, you get an image texture, which, and I'll show you this first. This is pretty cool because you can obviously open up whatever colour you're going to have on your object. Now this needs to be unwrapped, and manually unwrapping something like this is going to be an absolute pain in the backside without actually seeing seams. So a good way of getting around it is to change this from flat to box, and then from UV, instead of UV going into vector, choose object into vector, and it'll just wrap it around it seamlessly and look pretty damn good. You might see the odd seam where you know, you've got the texture over the top and around the sides, and then you might see a bit of a seam. It's calculated. And if you do see that, all you do is you turn up your blend a bit and it smooths everything together, so it's a bit less. Yeah, you can kind of see it working there. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but it just blends everything together. This is actually looking quite nice. I'm not worried about it, so I'm leaving that off. But we've only got the colour and nothing else. So another thing you can do is, instead of Control and T, do Control Shift and T, and then select everything you want to use. So I'm going to use the ambient occlusion, the colour, the normal OpenGL version. Remember, always OpenGL, and the roughness. And then hit Principal Texture Setup. Sets everything up for you, and then all you've got to do is go through and turn it from flat to box on each of the images. Box, flat to box, and then up here, object, come on, object to vector. And there is quite a nice looking rock. And then here we can just choose the same material. I should have named this. We'll call it stone. And then you could do a couple of different things here. We could mark this material as an asset. So there's the stone, and now I can just drag it onto my other objects. Or you could select any stone that doesn't have a material, then select a one. You could have several stones, then select a one that does have the material you want, hit Control and L to link data, and we're going to link the materials. So it uses the same one. It does exactly the same as just dragging and dropping, which is way easier. And then, I don't know why, but I seem to have some more stones here. Goodness, what am I doing? So we'll just demonstrate on there as well. Drag and drop, and we've got some rocks. Now then, let's say we wanted to scatter some rocks haphazardly across the ground. We could do this with grass or anything you wanted. We'll select a few that look a bit different-ish, and then select the ground or whatever it is you're wanting to scatter the objects on. And then if you hit F3 to get your search box up and choose scatter, you've got this thing that says scatter objects. And this is where the fun starts. We can then start drawing where we want them to scatter, anywhere you like. And then up here you've got some things you can change. So for instance, we might want to change the density of the rocks. We might want to turn it all the way up, or just have a few scattered about. You can change the radius, so it's how far away the objects are from the lines that you've drawn. And have it 0 and just have lines of rocks, or really scatter them. You can adjust the scale, so you have, you know, really big ones, or really small ones. 0.3, obviously they're going to be a third of the size of these, so I'm going to make them a bit bigger than that, maybe just over a half size. Randomness is randomness of the scale, so you get some small, some big. Again, I'll leave it at 0.8 at 80% rather for now. Rotation will randomly rotate your objects to make them look a bit different. I'll leave that at 29 as well. In fact, I might turn it up a little bit, maybe 60-ish. The offset. Offset is how far away from the object your items are going to be. If we leave it at 0, they're going to be on the surface, and then your seed's just your random seed. You can just scroll through that till you find something you like the look of, really. And when you're happy enough with it, you just hit enter, and we've got all of these rocks scattered about, which I think is pretty damn nice. It's not bad, not bad. However, how do you do this in Unity? Because obviously you can't really. This is going to be way too much geometry when you think you've only got 3 rocks, which you could just reuse over and over and over again, rather than, you know, you could join all these together and make one huge mesh and just lay it on the surface. But surely it's got to be more performant and better if you're just using 3 different meshes and scattering them across your surface. So what we'll do is I'll rename these first of all. Do I need to? I'll just get rid of these 2. They're fine called what they are. We'll make assets out of them, why not? Okay, so we'll start off by, well, we'll get rid of this for now and open up my end panel. And we can see the rotation and the scale is reset. It's fine on all of them, so we don't need to do anything there. So really, all we need to do is export them, and I've got an empty project started. Let's just add a plane so it's got a bit of a ground for them to sit on. And we want to start doing the materials, really, don't we? So we'll start off with this compost material. I'll go into shading. And probably the easiest way to sort it is to... I'm not going to bother with normals because they're just a pain in the backside. They never look right. So we're going to just save a copy of the ambient occlusion. Oh, look at that. Where did I put them? Banter projects. And what did I call this one? I think I called it SFB, Spacemaking for Beginners, 2022-325. Stick that in there. And the base colour. Save a copy. Oh lordy, have I got to do this every time? Yes, I do. Let's just hit modify date. There we go. And the roughness. And let's just create a quick amplify shader. So I'm just going to call it PBR which in case you don't know stands for physically based rendering, which is why you've got all your different bits and bobs like your roughness and your metallic and everything else to make it up. It's not just a colour. So we've got ambient occlusion, we've got colour, we've got roughness. So there's our three nodes. We'll call this colour because it's the first one. Drag that in there. Normal we're not bothering with. Smoothness, well, it's roughness because it's Blender, which uses roughness. And if we're not going to plug anything in, we need that to be black so that it doesn't have any smoothness or roughness, as it were. But because it's roughness, we want to convert it to smoothness, so we invert it by using a 1- node. And then the last one's the ambient occlusion, so we'll rename that ambient occlusion. That can stay as white if we don't use it. Plug that in there. So there's our shader. We'll create a material out of it, which we're going to call compost. And then we'll plug everything in. So ambient occlusion, colour, roughness, and we'll drag the material onto the ground. And I'm not going to bother with scaling, or am I? Maybe. Try 6 for everything. There we go. That'll do. It's still very shiny, isn't it? Kind of looks like wet compost, sort of. But never mind. We're going to start by bringing in our rocks. So start off with rock number 1. F4 is the shortcut to bring up your import and export menu. E for export, F for FBX, and we need to pop it in the right folder, so it's SFB. Lordy, I got them as, there we go. And I'm going to call it rock, selected object, mesh, export. See what happens there. There's our rock. And we'll just zoom in on it quickly. Okay, that's fine. Now we need a material for that. And if you remember, we didn't unwrap the rock because it's a horrible shape and it's a pain in the backside to unwrap. So what we're going to do, I'll give it the stone name again, we'll just drag that onto there. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new shader, which we did this in one of the first few sessions that I did. And we made a triplanar shader, which is basically going to do the same thing as what Blender's doing with this box and object and whatnot. With this, we're just going to create a triplanar shader, so I've called it triplanar. I'm going to stick it in my Lisa menu so I know where to find it in future. And again, we'll be using 3 textures. I'm guessing. I don't know. I can't remember how many is in it. Let's see. Ambient occlusion, roughness, and colour. Yeah, so it's basically the same. So, colour. I'm not going to plug them in yet. Actually, I've just realised I've done that wrong. We don't need, doesn't work with that. And I'll show you why in a minute. We need texture objects, not texture samples, which is a slightly different thing. So I'm just going to duplicate that, and again. So colour. roughness, which is going to be black if we don't use anything, and ambient occlusion, which can stay as white. Now, something else I forgot to do actually when I did this compost is I didn't set this to be grayscale. We need to turn off the colour texture bit, and this as well. Turn off the colour bit. It's got to be grayscale, and now it doesn't look as shiny. Now it's working properly. So for the stone, we'll do the same thing. We'll save a copy, and it's got to go into there, assets, save, and the colour. If you know where you've got these saved, of course, you don't need to in File Explorer. You can just copy them from one folder to another. But I don't know where I've put anything, so I'm just saving them from Blender. Image, save a copy. And then in Unity, we'll do what we should have done before. Turn that off, and for the roughness it's a grayscale map as well, so turn that off. So carrying on with the shader, what we need is a triplanar sample, and we need to tell it that instead of spherical, we could try spherical actually. I've never tried this. Let's give this a go, shall we? We'll duplicate that one, and again, because they're rocks, spherical, I always use cylindrical, but let's see what happens. So we've got colour, roughness needs to be, now I wonder if I should put me 1- here, before or after, probably, no, maybe not, doesn't like that. So maybe here, smoothness and ambient occlusion. Let's see what happens with the spherical thing. You can just drag and drop a shader onto a material and it'll apply it. I don't like that at all, but there we go. Let's start plugging things in. So we've got ambient occlusion, colour, roughness. Yeah, spherical doesn't work bad at all for this. I wonder how it would have worked in Blender if I changed it from box to sphere. Would that have made much of a difference, do you think? Let's see. That looks absolutely horrible. So we're sticking with box. Stick with what I know. Because it works. Just if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Lisa. So back to here. We've got one rock in. We'll bring in another rock. So back to here, select the rock, F4, E for export, F for FBX. We'll just click that plus and it'll add a 1. So we've got rock number 1. We can bring in rock number 1 and we can drag on the material. And then rock number, see is rock number 5. F4, E for export, F for FBX, rock number 2. Rock number 2, drag on the material. So let's see, we're going to have some big rocks, some medium rocks and some small rocks. So we'll make this the big rock, we'll make this the medium rock. So I'll give it a scale of, oh lordy, 50% of the original, and this one can be 25%. So big, medium and small. And we'll start off with rock. I'm going to stick that into an empty parent, and you'll see why. It's just so that I'm call it big rock. It's just so that I've got them separated and I don't make big mistakes, because we're going to duplicate this a bunch of times. You can either select, right click and duplicate, or select them all, hit Control and D and it'll duplicate them. We're up to 8 rocks, 16 rocks, 32 rocks. That's probably a bit overkill, but hey ho. And we want them scattered over me plane. Now I reckon we can go from, say, let's say we want to go from minus 0.5 over to minus 6 point. That doesn't sound right. Is that right? Let's just select one rock. Yeah, maybe minus 0.5 to minus 0.6.5 over there. So I'm just working out the area that I want them scattered across. So we've got to do it by axes. I'm sure there are add-ons in Unity that you can buy that scatters for you, but we're just going to do it the long way. So we're going to work on the x-axis first. Now what we can do, there's two main, I don't know of any others, but the two that I know of are either L for length, and you could go from 0 to 5 units, and I think a unit in Unity is a meter. And you can see it's kind of created an array, much like it does in Blender. Or you can do random. I think what we had was minus 0.5. Was it minus 0.5 to minus 6.5 or something? Try putting a minus in, Lisa. But that's even. We don't want even. We want random. So we can change the L to a capital R, and that does it a bit more randomly. And then over here, we want it to go from maybe, I don't know, I'm just looking to see which one's moving. It's the z-axis, so let's say -1 to 5.1, say. -1 to 5.1. So select all your rocks. Random. -1 to 5.1. And that's scattered across. I'm going to move them down a little bit. And then for a bit of random rotation as well, we can put in the Y rotation, which is straight up and down. So we want them to spin around a bit. So logically, it makes sense to go from 0 to 180 or something like that. It could be more. Let's say 270 even. And then on the X and Y, X and Z rather, we just want them to kind of tilt a little bit, don't you? We don't. Yeah, we'll just make them tilt. So from 0 to say 30, 30. And maybe 0 to 45, I don't know. Something like that. Now that's way too many big rocks, so I'm going to get rid of a load of them. But, you know, it was just a good way of demonstrating, I suppose. We'll just thin these out quite a bit. That'll do. And then the medium size rocks, we can minimize that. We'll put this into its own empty parent as well, which we'll call med rock. And we'll duplicate that a few times. And we'll do the same thing again, I guess. Find a rock, decide where you want it to go. So maybe from minus 1.1 to minus 1.1 to minus 7.6 or 6.5, 1.1, 6.5. So random minus 1.1 to minus 6.5. Okay. And then from say 1 to 5.7ish. Random 1 to 5.7. We'll give it some random rotation again. Rotate 0 to 180. And a little bit of random on the others. So, 0 to 40. And maybe 0 to 30. And we'll move them down a bit because they're floating. So, yeah, we're getting there. Doesn't look as good as Blender, but it looks pretty damn good. And what you got to remember is we're reusing the same meshes. These have all got, you can see it's using the rock mesh, rock mesh, rock mesh, and then the media ones, rock 1, rock 1, rock 1, etc. And that is always better when it comes to Unity. Reuse materials, reuse meshes, reuse everything you can as many times as you can, rather than creating new meshes all the time, something extra for it to download and hold in memory. So rock number 2, create empty parent. We'll call this small rock. Duplicate it a few times. 4, 8, 16, 32. We'll have a few of them. And then these we'll just want to scatter over the whole thing, I think. So from 2 to 6.8. 2 to 6.8. Select all of them. Random 2 to 6.8. Was it minus 2 to 6.8? Maybe I should have done. I didn't take any notice. Minus 2 to 6.8. There we go. And then we want it to go all the way over here, which is minus 9.23. 9.2. So 0 to minus 9.2. Random 0 to minus 9.2. There we go. And we'll give it a bit of rotation. Random 0 to 270. Random 0 to 45. And I'll just copy all of that and paste it in there. Make sure they aren't floating. I bet they are. No, they're all right. Yeah, probably are a little bit. So we'll just move it down ever so slightly. So they're just sticking out the ground. And in fact, I'll just move the parent with that one. There we go. So we've got some scattered rocks. And that's done without actually having to manually place everything. Now you'll see here, this is another thing as well. Oh, where's it gone? I've lost it. Hang on. We'll zoom in on that rock. When I move this rock, you'll see the texture moves. Or rather, it doesn't. The texture stays in the same place and the rock moves. It's almost like it's swimming through the texture. This is because it's using world position, world space coordinates, and we want to use object coordinates if we don't want that to happen. So what we'd do is under triplanar, you can use object position. You'll have world position and object position. We'll just choose object position, and under world position we plug this instead. Just plug that into all of them. So, and now it's broken because I've done something wrong. What have I done? Oh no, what have I done? Let's try bringing in world position. I did this just earlier on today. What have I missed? It'll be something obvious, you can guarantee it. Plug in world position and check that's actually working. It may be because I haven't got tiling or anything in. Yeah. How bizarre. What you can do is add a float, and we'll change the tiling to 1. And that way you can control the Lordy, what I didn't do was make this a property and call it tiling, which would have been sensible. Then we can increase or decrease that to however we want. I wonder why my object position doesn't work today, but it worked yesterday. Oh, and that's another thing as well. With the blend thing in the shader, where you turn this up to make the sides blend together. In Amplify, it's the fall off, and you just need to add another float, which you can then scroll up and down to blend the edges together, which is basically the same thing. But yeah, I've only just realised what time it was. Haven't really done everything that I wanted to do, but I think what we'll do is I'll save this as it is, and we'll add to it next week. Because this is what I was going to do. I was going to show how to UV unwrap the trees as well to make the bark work, because you can't use a triplanar shader with the bark, because if you've got a branch that's going up and down and the grain's going up and down uniformly up the trunk, but then, you know, around the branches rather than along it, it's going to look rubbish. So you need to unwrap it properly and do a proper material. So we'll do that next week, and we've already got a start on here. I'll probably end up putting grass on the floor, but we'll put in some trees and some plants, and next week I promise we will upload it and we'll go and have a walk around, just to show how quickly and easily you can throw things together like that. But that's it. I've just realised we've been going for an hour. I can't believe how quick that's gone. It's literally just flown by. So sorry about that. And I didn't even get to show you tree it as well, so I'll show you that next week, because that's fab. So yeah, an hour just doesn't seem long enough. thank you for coming along, and I'm very sorry I've blathered on for an hour and got so carried away I didn't realise what time it was. So
Always interesting, always interesting.
thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording now.